Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we will.
Do the roll call.
Yeah, roll call, please.
All right. Townsend. Mock is absent. Williams is present. Malco.
Here.
And Bat.
Present.
All right, thank you. We'll move to public comment. I see none. We'll move on to claims. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I did have one question. Just wanted to double check if we go down to Thornburg's and Son Construction.
Which claim?
I'm sorry, it's July 31st.
We only have August 14th for this
Yeah,
section.
There's only August ones.
Yeah, we have August 14th, 13th, 14th, and 14th on here.
Am I reading this wrong? Because I thought I printed it
I've
off.
got the same one.
You got the same one?
Thing.
Yeah, right there. Batch reference, July 31st. I don't know how else to describe it.
Okay. It'd be,
Page 2 of 4.
Okay, I can see that. Mr. Malco?
Well, the question was that improvements? I see a little memo there, or was it due to the storm damage that we had, storm? And is that something that's going to be turned into insurance, or is that too low as far as a deductible?
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page. You said you're on page 204.
2 of 4, yeah.
And how far down?
All the way down to the bottom, and then Aaron Wilson.
Thornburg and Sons.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so very good question on that. So basically what took place was we had storm damage. We had some high winds that came through. If you go out to our concession area right now, there's a hole in the ceiling. You can see the light of day coming through. So basically we've had that hole for some time. We reached out to insurance, and the issue we ran into was the damage was underneath the threshold for insurance.
That's what I was getting
Yeah,
at.
so basically what they quoted us about $8,800. So what I did was I worked with Mr. Essex in our maintenance area and basically asked him to get some quotes. He got 3 quotes for that, that's where Thornburg and Sons came in lower than that.
Sure.
And they actually were going to help us do some additional work beyond that, and we do appreciate that because they have some metal flashing that they're actually going to put on there to match the other places. So it was a lot cheaper that way, but that's the expense right there.
That's all I was wanting to know on it.
Yep.
Was there any other damage that was going to be put to a bundle where you got past that there deductible?
Yeah, so the predominant damage was on the concession area. So the main area was the hole. We did have a couple shingles from the elementary that came off, but nothing that was extremely earth shattering. You know, so what we decided to do was focus on that, get that up to snuff, and then the other we're just going to patch that in house.
Okay, that was my only question.
Very good question.
Any other questions? Minutes are there for your information. If there's no comments or questions about minutes, I will just need a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
I will motion.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those have been adopted. Presentation, Mr. Stover, you've got a couple of presentations for us tonight.
Yes, very excited about these presentations. Been working on this for the last month, to be honest with you. So just for the board's sake, what I'll do is I'm gonna treat this like a board training in essence, how I look at finances, and basically what I'm gonna do is cover everything that we're looking at for the 2026 budget. And prior to me moving forward, I like to let the board know kind of where we're at, let you guys know where our finances are looking at, and then maybe let you guys know some areas that I felt like that we can really work on. With that being said, once I get through this budget, I also have an illustrative financing guide for Baker Tilly. I'll go over that a little bit and I'll give you the rationale behind that. But most importantly, this is the first step in the budget process. So after I go through this, I will ask for your guys' approval to be able to post that on our website, and I'll show you kind of the next steps as we go through that. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So for the board, and actually, can you guys see this, Amy? Can you see this, Amy? Okay. So first off, the process we go through for the budget. The first thing we have to do is request permission to advertise the notice of the hearing in Gateway on August 14th. So basically, we're sitting here, we're going to ask for that. That allows me to go ahead and display that for our taxpayers to see what we're looking at in terms of ed, ops, rainy day, and everything. So as we do that, the next step would be DLGF communication. We work with DLGF. They're the organization from the state of Indiana that allows us to set our budget, and they're the ones that cut our budget down, and they're the keeper of the keys, if you will. Then we have a notice of public hearing. I will enter that in Gateway by September 1st. We have a notice of public hearing, budget, bus replacement, capital asset plan. That'll be posted September 1. We have a public hearing that we're going to have for, and I apologize, I have 2025 just because we're in, that should say public hearing for 2026 budget. I apologize, I just noticed that. That will be September 11th. And then as we go for the hearing, that's just allowing the community to hear what we have for our budget. And then we'll post our capital asset plan, bus replacement, and everything. We'll also do our board adoption on October 9th. That's when we'll adopt our budget, capital assets, bus replacement, and that'll all take place October 9. I will have all the forms completed and entered into Gateway, which they're already submitted in there. We just have to verify and push it on. And then you guys will hear of something called the 1782. 1782 notice will come in December, and 1782 notice is basically when I submit the budget, the state will bring back the numbers. They won't allow you to have a budget that you don't have cash balances for. They won't allow you, so basically the state doesn't allow you to just to make a ridiculous amount of money and say it's our budget. They'll bring it back down based on what our need is. And I'll dive into kind of what our needs are and where we generate those funds. Does anybody have any questions on the process so far?
On the notice, where is that as a citizen? Where would they find that notice as far as the budget itself?
Yeah, so the budget, so as a notice for the community, you can find that notice on our school website. So we'll put that on there. The legislation used to be you had to put the newspapers. I'll double check on that, but typically you would find it in a newspaper, and then that just gives you an opportunity to look at that as a taxpayer in the area. So that's in good faith.
We've done publications with the Star Press. So
Yeah. So if the legislation still states that we have to put the Star Press, we'll do that, and that would be within the next week or two.
It'll be on our website.
Yeah, 100% on our website at bare minimum.
Right.
I know that the legislation around that's changed a little bit, but we'll make sure we're in compliance.
Okay.
The next one is our budget process timeline. I'm just a visual learner, so that's why I wanted to provide to the board. I won't go back through this, but this is exactly what I just described, but just a linear timeline as to what we're looking at with the budget and each one of those areas. So I try to map it out that way. So if I can look at it, I'm like, okay, we're getting closer to this deadline. So when you go through the budget process, there's just a number of things we have to do. We have to go through board meetings and hearings and adoption and all of that. So just making sure that the timeline's right. So the framework, so this is what's required of Wes-Del. We have state prescribed forms. So I have to complete those and submit those. We have to advertise all the things we just discussed. We have to hold a public hearing, and that will take place next month. And then we'll do an adoption. And that has to be by November 1. So the state deadline is you have to do that. If you're a municipality, you have to have that submitted by November 1. DLGF, so the DLGF, and that's the Department of Local Government, they will review that. So once we submit it, once we submit our budget, the DLGF will review the document, and then they'll release the budget order. They have a county budget order. You can actually find that on the county website, and then that'll tell us kind of where we stand. So 1782 notice, though, is basically the state will ask us, hey, where do you want your tax rate? Where do you want all this to be? That's when we do our final sign off on that to make sure that it makes sense. So 1782 notice is pretty much, hey, you've submitted your budget, this is what we see in your budget, and then you sign off if you approve with what the DLGF has. And this is what typical school corporations do, is advertise high, and rates and levies will drop when certified net assessed value is entered. And I'll explain the certified net assessed value here in the next slide, I believe. Actually, the one after this. So in state funding in schools, you got three main funds. You got education, you got operations, and you got debt service. Some schools have referenda fund as well, but for us, we have three. Education is all education based. That would be salary and benefits for teachers, but also supplies and things to to educate the students. We have operations, which is really keeping the lights on, utility bills, maintenance items, custodial items, all of the other things to make sure the district runs effectively and efficiently. And then we also have the debt service. Debt service is the long time, the commitments we make, the GO bonds, all of that. And for the board's purposes, only two of these funds are taxable funds, okay? Tax-based funds. What I mean by that is operations. You will get taxes funneled into ops, but you'll also debt service. Debt service is the biggest one that we look at when we set our rate. That's what pays back the bonds when we procure them each year. Does anybody have any questions at that point? Okay, so education fund, and on DLGF, it's 0101. So education fund is not supported by property taxes. When it comes to education fund, it's 100% grants and things like that, or the biggest portion of this is your student ADM. So how many kids we have, each student, and I don't view a student as a number figure, but as a financial guy, I have to when we do the numbers, 7,900 roughly per kid, and then that's what we get. It's called the basic grant that you receive. We receive payments once a month throughout the year. And those are based on how many students we have in the district, and that's what feeds that fund.
So within that, if a student transfers out or a student transfers in, how does the state adjust for that? Is it a quarterly, a monthly? How is that rated?
Okay, yeah, very good question. Not monthly, as much as they would be nice to be able to figure that out. Yeah. The money does follow the kid. So we have an October 1 count date. So right now, and I'll get to how many students we have, but we have about 850 kids, right? Okay. That means nothing in terms of state funding. So we don't get. So what we're getting funded right now is based on last year, and then when we have the October 1 count, they make it right. So what they'll do is either bring it down and get the money back, or bring it up if your enrollment went up. So they have a formula in the state that will keep track of that. So we have two points in the year. We have student enrollment dates. We have October 1 and we have February 1. Okay. So there's two counts. So essentially, some schools have early graduates, for example, in December. Well, that's going to drop your spring count. So there's a number of things that go into that, but we get paid monthly, but it's based on those two count days, and then they fix each other every 4 months, if you will. Very good question, though.
Has the 7,900 as a state pretty steady has it been? I don't remember what it was last year.
Yeah, very, very good question. So the number is not steady. So it's based on SNAP, TANF. It's based on income in your area. It varies from district to district. If you're a very low income district, then it's going to be a much larger number. I can tell you in confidence that the number it increases every year. What we're looking at this year is an increase, and some years we see bigger increases. This year it's going to be lesser. It's 0.95%, so less than 1%. And I actually have a document that I'll share with you guys, impacts and based on legislation and stuff, but very good question. So we're going to see a little bit of an increase. That's probably $100 to $300 per kid, but in the grand scheme of things, that could be very beneficial in the long run. That number fluctuates year to year. So on here, we'll advertise the education budget. So I want to be clear with the board. I'm going to advertise the education budget lower than we've ever had. The rationale behind this is, as I worked through our budget wasn't true. And what I mean by that, I had to cut out about $1 million in terms of our budget, because the budget's a budget, but at the end of the year, you look at your cash balances. we had some anomalies in there. I actually worked with a financial advisor to work through this. The 7.2 is going to be more spot on to our budget than what we've had in the previous past. So, we're putting it lower just so we actually have a legitimate budget moving forward.
What do you mean by that? Because here you said a second ago that you'd want to go higher, but now you're doing the opposite of going lower.
Yeah, very good question. And I'll dive into that. That would be more in our tax-based funds, and I'll explain that because when I say estimate higher, it'll make more sense on the tax-based funds. So once I get there, I will. But what I realized was we had a lot of earmarked funds. We really were budgeting too much in our budget, and we need to draw back down. So it's not that we're losing money, but it's going to be a true representation of what we actually spend. Because basically when I build the budget, Carrie, is I have to look at, the way the budget works is I have to look at the last 6 months, I look at the next 12 months, and then 6 months ahead. So it seems strange, but when I look through our budget and I run the numbers for the first 6 months, there's a couple things that go into that. When I look at the budget, there's some positions that we have not refilled. So there's a number of things that basically we have placeholders in our budget that shouldn't be there, that have been there for a number of years. So I pulled those things out. It doesn't cut us back. It's just more true to what we actually have.
Actual.
Yeah, actual. So basically, I have to go through. I go through Form 9. I look through our revenue history. I look at our expenditure history. I look at the last 6 months, and then if I look at our expenditures weren't nearly close to what our budget was representing.
So we got extra money, is that what you're saying? Or
No, because basically, no, not necessarily, because when you set your budget, okay, we're appropriating a certain amount.
Right.
The state's going to allow you to appropriate how much you truly need, and somehow we had an inflation in our budget, and it didn't make sense. So it wasn't that we were coming up short. I mean, we were coming up short in education to some degree, but it was overly inflated, didn't make sense. So when I worked with a financial representative, it just made sense to take this back down, to have a better representation of how much we're spending. And in addition to that, some of the positions we didn't fill in the past, obviously we're not paying those salaries. We're not doing that, so we can bring it back because we're not spending those fees. The revenue is based on student enrollment, special education, SNAP, TANF, all of that. On here, October 1. Did I say September 1 before?
No, you're right.
Okay, I apologize because the date used to be September. It's October. So October and February, we will transfer up to 15% from education fund to operations fund through 2026. I will have a resolution for the board. This is one thing we do every single year is through the transfer of both these funds, I do a resolution. We'll do that resolution when we do the budget. So does anybody have any questions with the 15% and how that works? Okay. Debt service. So the debt service fund is based on tax base. So with the budget of 2.089, so we're going in this year with a budget that's higher than what's been in the past. Okay, we actually have budget. We have debt that's rolling off. We have and I actually put the debts on here. So the debts we currently have is ad valorem property tax of 13, geo bond of 14, ad valorem of 23, 18, and 24. So what we're seeing right now is the ad valorem of 13 is going to roll off. We won't have payments in the last portion of this year. So we see that one rolling off, and then we also see the geo bond rolling off as well. So what that is that's creating capacity for the district. So what I've done is you can put anticipated debt. So what I've done is I put anticipated debt into next year with the thought of a number of things that we need to work on in the district. That number can be brought down during 17A2, but basically what we do is we put the anticipated debt for 2026 in the event that we chose to do that. If we don't, then they just bring your rate back down. Do we have any questions with those?
So the last of the 2013 is 2025?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically what we have is just like a home mortgage or a home loan. You got an amortization schedule for each one of those. The ad valorums are typically 20-year repayment structures, and we're into the last phase of that. And I'll kind of show you on the next presentation I have the illustrative financing guide, because that'll actually explain how much capacity we have, and I like to be a good steward to community dollars by not increasing taxes. So when I say capacity and I say bonds and things like that, all the scenarios I'll provide today will be debt neutral. And what I mean by that is no impact to our taxing bracket, just maintain where we're at.
So if we don't do that, theoretically, that tax money goes to another levy?
Yeah, so you can lose your levy. So one thing that you that we try to in the school world is maintain that levy, because there's always a need. There's always a need to have that. You are correct. If you don't take on the capacity for that levy, then other municipalities can collect. But honestly, where we're at is we're trying to keep our rate steady and not increase it for our community members. And in doing so, we can still get projects done and be conscientious of our community. Operations fund, and this is probably the most difficult one this year with new legislation that's came through. You're gonna see this in the news. You're gonna see it in the Star Press. You're gonna see it all over the place. Because I'm not the only superintendent looking at the finances right now because of the impacts we're seeing. So the operation fund is basically, the old fund used to be capital projects, transportation, bus replacement. What we have now is just an operations fund 300. So projected revenue of $3.1 million. So basically that's revenue coming in. It includes estimated tax cap loss of $423,000. So what we're looking at this year in comparison to last year. So I'm going to just, so last year, during our budget year, we had a circuit breaker loss of $230,000, okay? We look at it this year, we're gonna have, so that $230,000 loss is going up to $423,000. So what we're gonna see is a shortfall in our operations. And I put on here between 140 to 235. It's a rough estimate, but basically what we have is new homestead credit. And that homestead credit is 300, it's either 300, the lesser of 300 or 10%. So you start to see, you have a homestead credit. So when we have homestead credits and things like that, since we're tax based, we're gonna see some losses there. So that would be one thing. The proposed budget for 2025 is $3,044,253. That was 2025. So we are ticking that up. So operations, when you're looking at operations fund, understand that we do have a little bit of an impact there as well. Operations fund is, you can grow your operations fund based on an MLGQ, which is a maximum levy growth quotient. The maximum levy growth quotient in previous years has fluctuated. This year and then moving forward, the state has established a 4% maximum levy growth quotient. What that means is, in our operations fund, if we look at, if anybody's good at math, if you look at the 3.44, if you actually put 4% more onto that, that's where I get the 3.1. So they are capping how much we can grow in that fund. Obviously, inflation and things happen around you. So the maximum levy growth quotient was locked out at 4% this year.
And that's just based upon no development, what's right here.
No, so maximum levy growth quotient, it would be within your taxing district, and it fluctuates depending. If you have a big agriculture base, then your taxes are going to be different. I know some districts aren't going to be hit really hard at all. Others are seeing it. I mean, we have 400. I've heard other county schools here in Delaware County, they're over $1 million in losses. So that's where, superintendents, we don't have a crystal ball, and then you put into making decisions in the future. But it's really tough when you don't know what you don't know. So we up to 15% will be transferred from education to operations during 2026, and will ensure that our revenue is higher than expenditures. And then one thing that I came across that that really hurt our funds, and I know when I came in, I was telling you guys I'm going to try to uncover some things. We have a personal loan that has really impacted our operations fund. Okay, as I explained, you have a debt fund and then you have an operations fund. For one reason or another, we have a personal loan in our operations fund that we're paying about $140,000 a year. The issue with that is when you have it in the operations fund, that's not a tax-based fund. So we're spending the money, but we're not recouping the money. So as I've dove into this, I'm trying to work through this, and basically what I'm getting at is we have this loan. We have about 2.5 more years of payments on this, and we have interest on this loan. In a perfect world, this would have been taken through debt service, and I'm trying to rectify the issue right now, and I just want to let the board know I'm trying to rectify this and figure out how we can resolve it. But basically what we're going to do is look at our capacity through a bond. I'll talk about that bond here in a minute. But try to really wash our hands of this loan, because it's not really, to be quite honest with you, it's not a good decision to pay a bond, or I say a bond, a loan. I apologize, a loan, to get a loan in operations and pay it straight out of operations.
When was this loan occurred? Where did it start?
So the loan that we had, I apologize. Okay, so basically we took out a loan in 2023. We took a loan out in 2023 for $529,000. So it looked like it had an amortization schedule for 5 years, some repayments over that, and we would incur about $80,000 in interest. The issue with this is typically in school finance, what you would do is you would go through the procurement of a bond. So what I try to do, just long story short, I talked to DLGF. I was trying, because basically we have our debt service that we pay out tax funds. I was asking DLGF if we could put that onto our debt schedule and use tax base to cover the loan. The issue I ran into was it didn't appear that we went through the proper channels to get this established. So there's a number of things you have to go through when you take on debt in schools. It's preliminary determination. You have to publicize it. You have to have a public hearing. You have to go through all of these steps. Basically what I ran into was I couldn't put it on our debt schedule because we didn't have those steps in place. So long story short, when I was talking to DLGF and our representatives, they suggested that we look at a bond to pay off this loan and then move forward.
Get it right.
Get it right. So
normal procedure for schools to borrow money, a little bit different than a household, is that we are supposed to go through a financial study and then make the announcement and go through a bond procedure to borrow money.
yes.
But instead, our past administration went to the bank and borrowed money.
From generally speaking, that's what it appears to be. I wasn't here during the time. I don't have a lot of documentation. Just simply put, I have a loan that's in my hand, a personal loan that's in the wrong, from my perspective, in the wrong fund. Yeah. And the only way to get it in the correct fund would be one of two routes. You go through every step you needed to in the first place, and that's where we're at, or we try to get a bond to wash our hands, or I hate to say, to make it correct. Yes. So, and I will say that loan it's about $140,000 each year. So if we're short in ed or we're short in operations, that's a good indicator of why we're short in those funds. Because if you, like I said, the 15% transfer, that 15% transfer goes from education to operations. And if we're paying a bill in operations and you're pulling from ed, so I'm trying to rectify that, but we did have a little,
Good catch.
Yeah, and so I take a deep dive into this stuff, and I think that this is going to help us quite a bit because once we get into the correct fund, that's going to give us a little breathing room in operations, and that will allow us not to have to transfer as much to cover ops, and then hopefully we can see some growth in those funds. And also with those bonds, the other thing is with bonds, it helps us do preventative maintenance on buildings. We talk about operational expenses and things like that. When you get bonds, you can offset some of your operational expenses with the bond money. And you can say, okay, because that's why you make bond projects and make them, you legitimize bond projects. So you can say, hey, we're going to knock this out, and you don't have to pull that out of your operations fund.
Did you see, going through your paperwork, maybe where that money might have been spent or what it might have been for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and so we did have board approval on. What we did with those things, which and it was HVAC work, I believe elementary, because we did have a motion to accept these, and it was Resolve Tech. So we were able to get all this taken care of, and the quotes or the proposals we received from Resolve Tech were pretty spot on. I mean, almost to the dollar of what we needed. So I'm fairly certain that everything was, carried out
correctly.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure everything was carried out and everything. But yeah, so by fighting this, we could have a little bit of breathing room. But this is something that's taken me a couple weeks trying to get it worked out. So hopefully I can get to the bottom of it, and we can set things straight and have a little bit of more cash flow in both those funds. Does anybody have any questions on that?
No.
So in this next bond, that's going to be part of it with the bus.
So basically, so with that, I will talk about the preliminary financing. It's only 3 pages, that's what we'll cover. But basically, I'll talk about that for the necessity of this to be able to get to the next spot. But so the next one is our rainy day fund. This year for 2026, we are going to appropriate $100,000. Currently, we have a fund balance of $195,000, and the appropriation means we're allowed to spend it. The state allowed you to appropriate that amount, but we do have $95,000. Ideally, I don't touch this fund because what I really want to do is work on getting this fund to at least 12%. My rule of thumb is 12% with rainy day, and I have a rationale behind that. I like to have, well, actually I said 12%, I apologize. I like to have more money in the rainy day just in the event that a chiller or something goes out. But the other thing is there's been times in the past where schools haven't got basic tuition payments from the state. So basically you get that monthly payment I was telling you about in the education fund. There has been times in the past where that funding didn't come through for one reason or another, and I would never live with myself if I couldn't pay the employees.
Essentially, it's a buffer.
Yeah. So I just use that. So, and I'll explain that a little more over the months and years. But yeah, my goal is not to hoard all the money. Obviously, spend the money you got. But when it gets this low, your eyebrows start raising. So with that being said, I put on here the 9-year rainy day fund balance. Dating back to 2017, we're about 707, which that's really not a horrible figure. Ideally, it'd probably be $1 million in a district this size. So we've fluctuated. So we went from 707 to about $195,000 today. So I'm going to work on trying to get those fund balances up. But that's where we're at with rainy day. So capital assets plan. So basically the capital assets plan is anything that would exceed $10,000. And this is something we have to submit to the state. You don't necessarily have to adhere to it. It's just, we have to submit it. And so what I've done is in the last year's, we had about $350,000 in 3 different columns. Where I'm at right now is we're going to do preventative maintenance, and that preventative maintenance is going to be the form of $50,000 for each building. Okay. So in the past, we've had a lot arbitrary numbers on there. I would feel comfortable with $50,000. And when I say that, this would be not necessarily expansion or anything. This is projects like if we need to get a steamer at the elementary in the cafeteria, if these are capitalized investments, so $10,000. These are bigger things. Hopefully, we don't spend any of it. You don't have to, but those are the things. And with me being so new, I'm going to work with our facility director and custodial to really figure out what we need to do, because I obviously I want to look at blacktop to rooftop, find out what the life expectancy is for everything, and being so fresh and new, like, we need to get a really good plan going forward. And I just don't want to just say we're going to spend $200,000 on nothing. Like, I don't know. So that's where that was at. What's your when you're looking at quotations?
So what are you trying to set as the standard? Are you doing like the minimum 3 quotations preferred to, like, for anything? So
Like,
you have something for
to quote out.
to quote out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So State Board of Accounts suggests that. So there's different levels, and so basically, if you hit a certain threshold, you have to do that.
Yeah.
So you have micro purchases, you have normal purchases, and you have large macro or
Percent of assets or everything of that nature.
So yes, getting 3 quotes is a standard,
Yes.
and even on the small projects, I still do that. We're looking at some concrete elementary, not a very big section, but for school for student safety, get 3 quotes regardless.
That's good.
Bus replacement plan. So this is just generally a 5-year period, and then so on the next slide, I do have this on here. It's kind of small. I do apologize. Basically, what we've done is we've got lease rentals for each one of these buses. The only bus that we currently own is 17, and then what I've done is I've associated. We pay a yearly amount per bus. So yearly amount for that lease, and then what we have is. I've fine-toothed this. What we're going to do is we do need to figure out how we can get into a better rotation. Having 3 or 5 buses on 5 and having 3, it staggers them out. But ideally, it would be in a perfect world, you have 2 or 3 and then cycle 2, 3, 3, 3. You know, to be able to do that. Life expectancy for a bus is 12 years per the state of Indiana. They typically tell you to replace a bus within 12 years. So that's generally what it is. The lease payments we have. So we pay about somewhere between $130,000 to $165,000 a year. Sometimes that does fluctuate. Last time I looked, it was at $135 on the payments we just went into. I have $165 on there because I don't have a crystal ball. Like I estimate high.
Yep.
So your goal is to purchase buses rather than to lease?
And this, generally speaking, and it's based on preference, and I've always been big on purchasing. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is if in 2026 we have $165,000 in lease payments, that could be a brand new bus.
Right.
And there will be years where you don't have enough cash to buy a new bus. So if in dire straits, you can say, I'm not going to buy a bus this one year, and then not have to spend $165,000 in your operations fund, and you just help yourself out just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I was in a situation very similar. We went 4 or 5 years without buying buses before I took up my previous role, and I had to fix the fleet by then, but we went 5 years without having to make any payments. We just did all the work in-house, and it worked well. Because there are years where it's tight and you got to figure it out. And if you're spending $165,000 to $200 on a bus or a lease, So I'm going to work through this. It depends on preference really, on which way you go. But I just always felt good about owning it, and you can also sell it when you're done.
How's our buses right now? I mean, how does our buses look?
Yeah. Bus fleet, I will be honest with you, the bus fleet has been, it's been a long time coming. We have a number of things that we've needed to update. To be quite honest with you, we have state police coming in September 26th to do an inspection on our buses, and we're just working our tail ends off right now, replacing tires. So the board, I will have a bill for tires. Just the tread depth is scary, and I do not feel comfortable putting a child in harm's way on our school buses.
But everything looks real good, though.
Yeah, So
Okay.
bus is great. It's just general wear and tear. Mm-hmm. We've done oil changes. We've replaced a lot of different things to make sure we're compliant, and we're putting kids on safe buses.
Good.
So.
Didn't we buy one of these small buses just this?
Yeah, that
Couple
bottom
months ago.
one. Yeah, that bottom one down there.
That's the one we've had for a long time. And
Is it?
International, we bought a small bus too.
Are you looking at the Chevy Collins 12?
Yeah. Well, So I don't see any, that we own any but this bus 17, and that's the one we've had for a while.
Yeah, and 17 is a slightly older one. It has lower mileage,
right.
but I'm based on my conversations with transportation, 17 is the only bus we have.
No, because
We had a discussion about what we wanted to do.
Yeah, but
we
didn't
bought- We
Melissa-
just bought one
Yeah.
with Melissa and released the rest of them and bought one,
yeah.
a little.
So you're saying we have a minibus that's, and I apologize, I'm just that new
Yeah,
that I'm
no,
not entirely sure.
It just happened prior.
It just
to-
happened.
Okay,
Yes.
before I came in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not saying you're wrong on that, Larry. I'll double check because I want to make sure it's correct on here before we submit to the state.
That's what we agreed to. I don't know if it got done.
Yeah, and it very well, I will get you a response tomorrow. I just don't know the answer to that one
It
right now,
was a small one there.
Yeah.
Yep.
for sure.
I didn't know we had 5 of the small buses. The Chevys.
Thought we were going to send one back.
I thought,
I thought we were
for
going
some
to
reason,
send.
I thought we had 3 of them. I'm
And you're
obviously wrong, but
And hold on, let's see something.
Yeah, I thought we were sending one back,
hey,
and
hey there.
we bought one.
Look at that one.
All these documents
I-
are updated.
Yeah, I just updated this. I
oh, I
apologize.
can't see that. up there.
Yeah,
I'm
Larry,
sorry.
we don't have that many. Yeah, I apologize. This is a refreshed list.
That is.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
refreshed.
Okay.
So
I'm
we
sorry,
only
I'm
have
looking at
3
the wrong
minibuses.
one.
No, you're
No,
right.
you have the right one.
You have the
I
right
didn't
one.
update that sheet. I did that in the interim today. I apologize.
That's
so I
the
want to let you
correct
guys know.
sheet. That's
So
there.
this is the legit, and I know it's small, but yeah, I had too many cells on that last one. I took off. So the paper copy you guys have is incorrect. The paper that everybody is viewing right now is correct.
Okay.
So I wanted to just let you know on that because I was like 5 minibuses. Yeah, I don't have that. Yeah. So that would be correct. And Larry, what I'll do for you is I'll give you an updated list. I apologize. I in the world of Google, you update that and then good. So I'll make sure that's correct on there. Property tax collections, I just like to bring this to the board's attention. We have received, we're receiving about 83% of our taxes, and this is based on June 30th. So I had Teresa run a report to see what the taxes are coming in. So basically what we have is we have an estimated amount that's provided from the county. County will tell you what your lit tax is, your excise tax, all the different taxes you receive, and then we also look at less circuit breaker. But generally speaking, last year we received about 83% of our tax base.
So that just means 17% of people didn't pay their tax.
There's a number of factors into that. Also, circuit breaker plays a factor of that. So if you're in circuit breaker, if you're low income or elderly, sometimes you don't have to pay the taxes. So there's a number of things. I would say that the percentage we receive is pretty low, though. 84% of the
But when they
estimate.
take out the circuit breaker here, is that 83% of the adjusted amount?
It very much so could be.
So it's still.
Yeah. So the circuit breaker does basically the circuit breaker is what.
I'd say the circuit breaker is a lot of it because Gaston reaches that maximum amount. So I would say a lot of that. And then if anything's in the city of Muncie, more than likely that's going to hit the cap as well.
ADM trend. So 22 we're at 836, 23 847, 24 we're at 853. Right now we're right at 850. And the first couple of weeks of school, it's just hard to really see what that number looks like. I can look one day. Yesterday is 855. Today, it was 850. It's going to fluctuate a little bit. So ideally, we'd like to be status quo or keep growing. Ideally, we're right in that sweet spot. It's actually nice to have a pretty consistent number where we're at, but I want to give you guys an idea of where we're at currently.
Sound like we had a good kindergarten class.
Yeah, so kindergarten, once again, fluctuates a little bit. I think I might have sent you guys an email. We had 72 one time at 69. To be honest with you, I'm not sure where we're at, but it's going to be I believe, second biggest class. We have a sophomore junior class that's 79 kiddos. So it's a great number. So I'm very happy with where we're at with that. 7-year education fund history, and basically what I put on here, and I guess in 2018 it was general fund. So what I try to do is just show you guys an example of how much cash balance we have at the end of the year. So in terms of your budget, how much money you don't spend. So we back in 18 we were about 1.6, and then we worked our way down to $888,000, which is, I mean, it's not that is not an unhealthy number, but it's enough to necessitate the need to say, hey, we probably need to look at finances. We're seeing a drop here. We need to try to get this trend the opposite direction. So,
Have you seen any kind of factors or anything that has created this trend?
yeah, I would say just generally making sure that we spend money in the correct earmarked category. I'm just saying, like, just making sure what we budget and we earmark, we spend, and we don't try to spend money in different funds. I would just say that I would say that to some degree we can see that in 23 you can see a big drop. So from 1 million to 608, that could arguably been that loan, like that we paid out the first 2 payments for that. So you're going to see a trickle down as we're paying those loan payments and as we transfer through. So, but that I just wanted the board to know, like, I'm going to have a close eye on that. That's something we need to focus on, and make sure that we have healthy balances in those areas. Notes. Like I said earlier, 0.95% increase. So Larry, to your question earlier, we went from 74.59 to 76.37. I said 78, but that new homestead credit that I spoke about earlier, and then the maximum levy growth quotient bill cap at 4%, which is minus $19,000 in our operations. And thank you for listening to my soapbox.
Great presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing is I try to be a good steward to the community. We set tax rates and we do that. Being transparent and be able to answer those questions, it's a big deal for me. I want to be a good steward to this community. Okay. Okay, I got you. All right. And then, so the next presentation I'm going to cover, typically I would have Baker Tilly here. I will actually, when we start going through these process, I'll have the representatives here to give this. I just feel comfortable enough to just go over it myself. What we're going to do is we're just going to look at the first 3 pages that I've provided you. So what we have is we have illustrated financing information, and this was created on the 12th of August. This is from our friends at Baker Tilly. They're our municipal advisors. They walk us through really, they tell us how much capacity. They help us set our tax rates, make sure that we're good stewards of the money we spend. So they advise us through this. So as I go through page 2, what we have on here is we have it's basically our debt service, lease, rental payments. And if you guys remember correctly, on here, so what we have is we've got all of our current bonds that are out right now. And then what we have is, if you can see this very little portion right here, we have ad valorem of 2013, the bond we were talking about earlier. We pay our last payment in 2025. As we roll into 2026, that's going to dissipate. So what that does is that's going to create capacity that we once had before, and we want to assume that we take that capacity back. What that means is we're not doing a tax increase, but we're going to stay neutral, but that's going to allow us to get other projects off the ground. So what we try to look at is how that drops, and then we try to regain our capacity.
I know we're tight on funds. I remember being at one board, they had a bond that was coming to an end. Mm-hmm. They had extra money in their account, so I know probably the scenarios are different. And my argument was, why did we wait for that last 6 months payment to be paying interest on that if we're going to sit there and make that anyway, why didn't we sit there and do it the time before to save that last part of interest?
Yeah.
Is that a scenario? Because like I said, it was a board that had extra money and its funds there, but when you did the math, it was quite a bit of a savings, and all you're doing is waiting for 6 more months to go by to make that last payment, but the money was still there, but you saved that 6 months worth of interest.
Yeah. So, yeah, very good question.
I know it's a little bit different thinking, but it's like,
So I will say that it depends on the type of bond, because I will tell you, and I'm not an expert in the bonds. I mean, I know bonds really well, but not as. But basically, what you're looking at is a lot of the way that these repayment structures are is they have inflated payments on the front end. So what they'll do is they'll inflate the payments on the front end, and they'll taper them off at the end. Mm-hmm. So by the time you get closer to the end, you have less of the interest you be paying,
Correct.
and more just principal. We can look into that, Carrie. I don't have a great response to that, but it's worth
I just
looking
know
at.
that from that, it was 6 months, and it's like, why are we waiting when we know we owe that last one?
Yeah.
You're paying it out
Just
anyway.
wash your hands of it and not have
Wash
to
your
worry about it.
hand. It doesn't take away from your debt service because it's within that time frame of that year.
Yeah, very good question. I'll give you a better response when
Okay.
I do some research on it. Okay, and then we'll go to the third page. So basically what we have is, so 2025, I would like to start looking at this as a board. We'll get some representatives in here. But basically what we have is you have the certified net assessed value. That's basically the value of your taxing district. $361 million, and then based on what your certified net assessed value is, divide that by 3, and then times it by 2, and then it gives you what your GO bond limit is. So it's not like you can just ask for all the money in the world. The state puts a limit on your DLGF or your general obligation loan. So basically what we're looking at is we got $2.4 million, and then you subtract what we still owe. Okay, so we're seeing this pull off. So yeah, going back to the GO bond of 14, that's the remaining amount we have. So what we see is once we deduct that, we have $1.6 million roughly that we have for the estimated general obligation capacity. What that means is we have that amount that will not impact our taxpayers at all. So basically, as our bonds roll off, that gives the capacity back. So we have the potential of 1.6 million for 2025 if we start this process now. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Typically, we'd have Baker Tilly do this presentation because we have some other pages in there. I'm not going to touch the other pages, but basically, what we're looking at is we do have a wastewater project that the IDEM's breathing down our neck on. There's some things that I need to address. So we do have a larger amount next year that's available as soon as 2026. Those are on your next couple pages. I'm going to stop here just so you guys have a general idea for 2025. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we'll dive in there. Also in your packet, board members, I put in there IDEM. So I have been working with the Indiana Department of environmental management, if I can speak. And basically, we're working with them to make sure we're in compliance. They've laid down a list of timelines and things we have to hit. I want to share that with the board just so you guys know the timeline. And I've been working with them. I've met with them a couple times now, and we've been working through a timeline that has started before I even got here. I will say that those meetings are pretty contentious to some degree because we need to get some things done. And so I just want to give that to you guys. I do have to do quarterly reports on where we're at with all the updates. So I also provided a quarterly update on kind of the things we've done so far and then what we do forward.
So on that there, speaking of the sewage part, how is our relining coming?
Yeah. Very good question. So relining is going pretty well. We have went through the majority of the middle school. We did some linear views. What they're trying to do is go through all the piping and figure out if they can actually truly line it. We did run into a small hiccup. We go from an 8-inch line to a 6-inch line, and the issue is that kind of bottlenecks everything. Yeah. And then we also have an area where the pipe actually goes laterally through the middle school. The issue we're looking at is there's a good chance we have to break in through the concrete floor to get to the pipe because when they go through the lining process, the 6-inch line's pretty tight and they can't get it to turn. So they actually have to cut through and get into the line to go through. So we're going through that, and that's putting that. I mean, IDEM is happy that we're doing something in that regard. But yeah, we had a little snag there, but we should have everything done by fall break. Because if we have to do the concrete and break through, we will do that when we have a student break.
Any other questions for Mr. Stover and his presentations?
Good job.
We appreciate the information. It's been great information. Thank you. All right, new business, employment action. So there's several recommendations for employment A through L are the consent items. Is there any questions, or if not, we need a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve lines A through L.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, those have been passed. Okay, so the action item here for, do you want to
Yeah. So
talk about this, or?
yeah, just so pretty much just permission for me, and also in your packet, just for your understanding, I also put Form 3 in there. This is what we'll post, just so you guys have that. This should be behind your illustrative financing guide. So you'll have that on there. If you have any questions on that, obviously ask me. But yes, so that would be to post this on the website so the community can see it, and then wait our time period, have the hearing, and then the adoption.
So what we're looking for is permission to advertise the 2026 budget, the capital and bus replacement plans as presented.
I move to approve that, so whatever you said.
Permission to advertise the budget and replacement plans.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a second?
There is a second.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the July month-end reports are in your documentations. Is there any questions on those?
July
Month-end?
month ends, that was in the packet there. Because I did not realize,
Not in that packet, in the
No,
in
no.
the board docs.
In the board docs.
okay. Oh,
You don't need any action on that, do you?
We don't need any action, we're
Okay.
just asking it for questions. Okay, if not, we will move on to superintendent's report.
Okay. I have very exciting news. Our elementary I read 3 scores were incredible this year. So I want to commend our 3rd grade teachers, but I also want to commend everybody at the elementary, because I mean, just because it's 3rd grade doesn't mean we haven't had impact throughout. We have some really strong teachers. I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Purdue, Mr. Reagan. Honestly, the energy here, the educators, it's reinvigorated me as an administrator. I'll be honest with you. I told everybody, like, this has been one of the most exciting starts that I've had, just because of how passionate the teachers are here. I'm impressed. So with that being said, our kiddos, our families, we put a lot of effort into this. So we were the highest school in the county. So we're the best in I Read 3 in the county. And also in East Central Indiana, I actually tried to look at the entire state. We're top 30 in the entire state based on that percentage. So I'm going to tell you, I commend the administrators, teachers, family members, everybody for that, because that's a testament towards the hard work and everything we've done. It's been a great start. We have had a lot of radio chatter from transportation, and that's no offense to them. It's just, first couple of days is going crazy and trying to find kids. Great start. I think we got a lot of energy going. We're still in the honeymoon phase right now with the kiddos, but I'm very excited about how nice the school year has started. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Board comments. Larry?
I'd like to welcome everybody back to school, the administrators, the teachers, staff, everybody. I'm glad we're off to a great start. Hope we can continue that. I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
Absolutely.
And congratulations on the Iowa Read 3 thing. It's amazing.
That is cool.
I just did a follow-up through, so I wanted to inform the board. I made an announcement at the board. We discovered that we were paying property taxes on one of our buildings. And so I followed up last week, and it is longer than I expected. It did get approved, so I had to go through a board to be approved for a refund. Since 2018, we've been paying property taxes on the Star Financial Bank that we now possess. That check, it should be coming about a week and a half to 2.5 weeks, somewhere around there. It's up to the board, but I would like to go pick that check up when it's being written and then bring it to you guys. I'm just not a fan of the mail, but that's up to you. The dollar amount is $25,171, and I spoke to them again today, and that's the most current information I have. The other thing, I would like to have our superintendent contact our attorney, and I would like to see us do an appeal for the remaining balance with the state for that their property tax that we paid. Underneath Indiana code, we are allowed to go back 3 years, and that's what the county did. They went back 3 years. That's the dollar amount. The remaining, I don't know the exact, but I feel like it's worth the opportunity. And if they say no, they say no, but I feel like we should at least try.
That is good
The
news.
last thing I would have is a question. And my memory's kind of gone because we went through a lot of processes here. Are we supposed to have an attorney here for meetings or every other meeting?
Once a month.
I just don't recall seeing an attorney, which I know we've had a lot of things going on. But is that something we feel as a board that's necessary? Are we paying for something that we are not getting service for? Or do we sit here and say, you know what, maybe we should recontact them and say, hey, we're not seeing that here. Can we change what we are paying? I hate paying for something that I don't. Or do we anticipate something down the road where it's like, hey, Carrie, they're going to be here every meeting because we have these things going on. So I don't want to jump the gun, but I feel like we got some bank going on as far as what we were supposed to get.
It was going to be once a month
Once a month.
Yeah.
at the meetings, and we were going to,
We would have items aligned for that nature for
That we
asking
needed.
inquiries for.
Okay, yeah. Not privy to that,
Yep.
but
But I just want to bring it to the
yeah, I
attention and
appreciate it.
ask.
and
Okay.
I think initially Melissa had, there was some communication between the two, and Melissa would say, nope, we don't need you to come.
Sure.
So again, it's just probably getting in touch with
Okay,
Laura and
okay.
making sure that we are aligned with what the needs are.
For sure, yeah, and I've had the opportunity to meet Mara. I've went over to the offices and met with her already. Yeah, I'll touch base.
Okay.
I just didn't know that, and that was really generally not something we talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can reach out to her and see what we can do.
All right,
That was my question.
Yep.
all right. Shane?
I would like to say thank you to you, Carrie, and to you, Andy, for setting up and arranging the fair. Having that booth out there at the Gaston Fair, I went out there and I sat Friday, and it was a really good experience. I got to see people I haven't seen for quite some time, had a lot of interactions. I felt that was good to have for the community. So I appreciate your guys' time, energy, and efforts that you put into that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everybody for all their efforts. I mean, there's been a lot going on, and we're seeing good results. So thank you, and I'm excited about the start of this first school year, hearing good things. So we look forward to a lot more as the year moves on. So thank you all. All right, we just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.